to order. And first order of business is to consider the minutes of the May 9th committee meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 9. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion is carried. We always provide opportunities for the public to appear at our committee meeting and express any concerns they might have. During the time called public comment, does anyone wish to address the board or the committee? Public comment. If not, and if there's no objection, the public comment portion of the meeting is closed, and we will move on to review the payment approval reports.
All right, so for land information, there was LiDAR enhancements for a total of $29,387. And for the zoning, there was Lady Smith News public hearing, refund of a permit, and then there was some lodging for trainings for a total of $710,883.
Okay, anyone wish to make a motion to accept the payment approval reports? I'll make a motion, so. Second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or further elucidation needed? If not, on the motion to approve the payment approval reports, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. The motion is carried. Monthly reports. Where's John? John's
Hi,
here
hi.
to give a report on land records. Hi, John.
Hi, not a whole lot to report. We had 8 addresses that Nick went out and got, GPS'd them, and we got those into the system. Parcel mapping continues as they keep coming in. One thing that I was gonna bring up is that the town of Atlanta has approached us. A little brief history on part of our remonumentation. When the remonumentation first started years ago, the townships were approached and asked if they wanted to contribute to the remonumentation project to help us along and kind of pay a portion of it anyway. And, excuse me, it was typically $5,000. When those people ran out, we kind of didn't do anything with it because nobody else wanted to contribute to it. But again, the town of Atlanta has approached us and they would like to get on the list to get it remonumented. They're willing to give us the $5,000, which would go into our contracted services budget line item to continue on with the remonumentation. And Nick and I spoke about it. There doesn't seem to really be an issue with that. We've got the funds that are in there now, plus the 5,000. My plan is to do an RFP. Once we're done with this meeting, I'll start that process. And then I'll bring it next month to the committee to take a look at it, make sure everybody's okay with it, and kind of move on with that.
I remember when we first started that remonumentation, and we did, townships did participate financially.
They were they asked to be put on the list, so they prioritized it by those townships that would contribute.
Yeah.
Once we were done with the ones that contributed, we went off of population.
Are they aware that we've been doing them without?
Yes.
Just making
I actually spoke with Steve and explained it to him what the process is now, and they just wanted to be bumped up on the list, so they're willing to contribute, which shocked the heck out of me. But one thing that we found with the townships that contributed is it gave them a little stake in the game. They were more apt to protect the markers than the monuments because they had an investment in it. So I'm pretty happy about Steve coming forward and asking for that. And he has went to his board, and apparently it's being discussed or was discussed and approved. So he said to proceed with it. So I mentioned that I was going to bring it to the committee and guys know about it, and if, there are no issues, I'll put the RFP together and we'll get that taken care of, and then I'll bring that to the next month's meeting. I think the reason, because I wasn't here when it originally started, but I think the reason they set it at $5,000, because at that time, and we're talking, I've been here for 22 years, the prices to do a township were anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, and we were paying, you know, anywhere from $200 to $300 a corner. Now we're paying $800 a corner, so the prices have went up substantially. But
We were doing it in-house then too.
pardon?
We were doing it in-house.
Yeah, and we were doing it in-house. So, yeah, when I started looking at the numbers, I was amazed at how much it's went up.
So it was really a pretty slow process. I mean, just because, we had a county, surveyor, but,
But at that time, he was being
and-
pulled in 10 different
we were
directions.
back and forth, and
Yeah,
so it took quite a while to get one town done, so.
right. Now we're doing it
Yeah.
in less than a year.
How many townships have been remonumented?
8 right now that have been monumented with GPS. So we do have a lot more corners out there. When I looked at my last report that we sent in to DOA, we have 78% of the county completely remonumented with GPS control. So a while longer, we'll get them all completed. We have started the process of, we're inputting, or they call it co-going, coordinate geometry. They're putting in the points with GPS for the section corners, and then adjusting the quarter section lines to match the new GPS lines. And we're doing it township by township. So we're getting that stuff adjusted slowly but surely to, once it gets complete, we can kick it out. Things will be a lot tighter, more accurate on the web.
I understand, or remember that we've also done all of
The entire
Border-
boundary, yes.
the border, towns, I mean, that portion of the towns that borders other.
Well, not the entire townships, but we did the entire border of the county, so.
That's right.
Yeah, our piece of the puzzle for the 72 counties is complete, so we can adjust to everybody else to make sure that we're snug and right where we need to be.
So then we are also, I would presume, getting ready to make the next RFP for the next town
For
we have
Atlanta.
on our, list,
Yeah, it would be Atlanta.
besides the town of Atlanta.
Oh, so, yeah, we did half of Lawrence.
Yeah.
And we were gonna do the second half of Lawrence, but the first bid that came in for Lawrence, when I sent out the RFP, it was for the whole thing, and it came back at $115,000. So after I choked on that for a little bit, we decided to do just half of it, and it's such a rural, wet area that I think we got one bid, and that was from Rusk surveying. Nobody wanted to touch it. It was just too big and it would take too long, so that's why we broke it down. But, my intent after Atlanta is to go back to Lawrence and finish that up the second half. Because we can push that out next year, and then we'll have the full, balance of our grant to be able to take care of that, so whatever it is, we'll have.
So how soon, Nick, will they have a GPS on a drone so you don't have to?
My drone right now has GPS on it. It's RTK, so it's making the correction as it flies.
Yeah.
So it's probably within, it's not survey grade, but it's within centimeters.
That'd be cool. Have the drones at the corners? There we go.
Have a drop apart.
Yeah.
Drop a pin.
Well, high enough, you might be able to get some good
Yeah.
penetration. I wanna watch out below.
Anybody have any other questions about John's proposal, and we'll be looking at that RFP next month?
Yes, sir.
You have any other report to add?
Not really. I sent in my DOA, report for our grant funds, cause every year we have to submit what we spent it on, how much we spent. And the state's pretty happy about just what the top dollar is. They wanna see the bottom number look like it, so that's what we've done. Put that out there, and we got a response back from DOA that says, great, so we're good to go.
Sounds good. Are there any further questions? Thank you, John. We'll move on to the Register of Deeds office. Mary? Hi.
Alright, so recordings have increased by 64 documents last month. Vital records increased by 67, so hopefully that keeps going up or stays at that pace. We had only one new veteran added to the Honor Rewards program. Crystal's continuing to scan old documents from the basement, and when I get a chance, I'm still back indexing plats. That's the only thing I have, other than that transfer return bill that we wanted to discuss what they're doing with that. I don't know if we have time for that, or that was at the end of, yeah.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Mary? Register of Deeds office? No, thank you. There's, she is.
Hello.
The treasurer's with us. She has a report for us, I'm sure.
Okay, so, I finally got a court date set for our foreclosures, and that's July 11th. There's, 4 on there right now. 3 of them I'm working with, and since they are in contact with me, I'll be pulling them off, so basically we'll be just taking one, for foreclosure. That person is deceased, so, and with nobody else there to pay for it, so we'll be taking that one, for sure. So that's only one. That's like, that's never happened before. Then with the plat book, we got done editing that a couple of weeks ago. We were looking at each section by section. We sent them 417 corrections. They got them back to us already. We were looking at the whole thing over, had made just like maybe 9 more corrections. So I don't know how long it's gonna take for them to get that into production, but I'm assuming we'll be selling that about the same time as we're taking taxes for, so we'll be really busy. The other thing too, I was gonna say is we did get, our cover, we were going to get some pictures for that. We were working with, Kelly out at Tourism, which they have, is it Pilch Barnett? We were trying to get some pictures off of them. Well, that all kind of fell through, and so we were scrambling for pictures, and we ended up getting Craig Fairbert, who is a local artist. We got him for the cover, which is kind of a neat thing to have, I guess. So, and I'm just gonna say, I think we'll probably start to sell that probably maybe the first part of July.
Anybody have any questions? Not, thank you, Verna. We'll move on to zoning office, Yvonne.
All right, so our land use permits are still trailing last year by a little bit. We were at 162 this year, we were at 196 last year. Sanitaries have jumped ahead, so we're at 46 this year compared to 37 last year. To date, we have 317 camper permits, comparing that to 292 at the same time last year. Enforcement's been really, really busy this last month, so there was 11 enforcement letters that were sent out. 5 of those have been resolved, and then there was also 7 camper letters sent, which are separate from the other ones, and there was 2 of those resolved. So there's a lot of issues pending out there. We're supposed to have court tomorrow, but apparently we've now come to a deal to try to get the compliance on, was one with a building built without a permit too close to the road, so maybe it's been 3 years in the works of trying to get it resolved. Yeah. We printed off 1,939 septic maintenance notice cards, so if any of you got our little postcard in the mail, you're not alone. They're not all out yet. We're trying to kind of send them in batches because the phone has been ringing like crazy for those 2. And we've been trying to send more of our letters certified, because if you do a citation, you're supposed to give them a 30-day certified notice first, unless it's a situation where a 30-day notice wouldn't work. We are finding difficulty with either the post office is losing them, people are refusing to pick them up, I'm not sure, but when I'm tracking them, they're really not getting to the people, so I don't know what our plan's gonna be, but I just resent one that still says since the 26th that it's in transit. And it hasn't changed for over 2 weeks, so I resent it Friday, and we'll see if that one does any better, but,
Are these mostly absentee properties?
they're mostly out of the area
That's
people,
right.
yeah, so, and they're people that probably don't wanna get a mailing from zoning to begin with, so. I don't know if they're not, cause people get, the notified mail now where you can see what mail is coming for you, so. Informed delivery, so they can see that they've got a certified letter from zoning, so then they just aren't there to sign for it or something, I'm not sure, but it's not working really well so far.
Yeah, I don't know what they-
Just for curiosity, when, last year or last fall, when that, lake lot on Chain Lake got demolished, now, can he get a building permit before he restores the trees and stuff that he?
Yeah, he'd have to get that buffer restoration started before more permits.
I'm just curious.
He hasn't asked for any
If they're
permits.
gonna tow your truck away.
I thought there was something,
That's an ambulance, isn't it?
Huh?
that's a fire truck.
Oh, it's a fire truck.
Where's Fitzy's
Something
pickup?
going on because they're coming.
Oh, I thought it was the tow truck was
Well,
coming.
everyone was getting so excited.
I'm not parked in a handicap spot.
They were hollering up there.
You're over that way,
Yeah.
right?
They're right there.
I thought maybe
Been a
you
fire?
were out front too, they're gonna
They're
take it.
coming in.
Somebody burnt some
So
toast.
we haven't gotten any buffer plan rescue from them yet, they also haven't applied for anything yet, so it's on my list to reach out to say, hey, do the land conservation and get that plan in, so. He did put fabric up and put some fence up, so
Saw that.
we got that stabilized, but.
Still looks like hell.
And you're not gonna fix that very fast.
Anything else?
Nope, that was
Anybody
all.
have any questions for Don? No, thank you, Don. We'll move on to Nick.
Just a couple of things that Johnny's been real busy with the improvements at the fairgrounds and a couple of the deck cab swarm projects we got going. And Devil's Creek projects as well. We've been real busy with the shoreline program. It's super popular again. Had 30 people call about it, want to find out more, want the information. Gone out and looked at them. Of those 30, I think 20 of those are new folks that hadn't called. 9 of those, or 10 of those are folks that we talked to last year. Either it was too late in the year, we didn't do anything with them, or they didn't quite score high enough. So we can go out and take another look at it. But we're basically out of money. The money that was allocated for that program, we're already fully out of money. So basically, at this point, the new people that are calling in, we're signing them up for next year. Been real popular. It was interesting, last year, the log revetment, the log structures were real popular with folks. Lots of people wanted to have that for shoreline protection. This year, it's rain gardens and native buffers, plantings. The majority of the folks that we're talking to, they want to do plants, native plants on their shorelines.
That's even better.
Yeah, it's even better. So it's a great program. It really is. It's really popular. Folks really have responded to it. Only other thing I would mention is we did get the LiDAR enhancements from AIRS. John's taken a look at it. We have all that. I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet, but
It's pretty nice stuff.
I just was told to come take a head count of those that didn't leave the building when they were supposed to, so they can document it.
There's no fire alarm in here.
Well, it was going on the other side of the building.
There's no fire alarm.
This side didn't go off at all? Well, they're still not
We've got
connected.
recordings saying there's
Yeah,
been
they're
no.
still not connected then, okay.
Yep.
Peyton
didn't
was
hear
worried
it.
about your girl, cause she didn't leave. You
Huh?
didn't think, Crystal.
Mine?
Yeah,
Oh.
but,
She
alright.
can't leave
I was
because
just
you're here.
told to come take a count of who was still here and
No,
why.
lock the door, she's being kind of boring.
What's the penalty?
I don't know.
We're gonna die.
We have to
I guess.
stay here?
so that's about
I was surprised if ever.
what's keeping us busy.
Well, apparently it must not be bad, cause he didn't tell us to get out.
Three.
He just dumped
Yeah,
it.
three more
He
well
walked right
abandoned.
by the door and didn't say, hey, get out of here either.
Well, I'm sure as hell not running out.
We'll give you
Oh,
a
and,
list, right?
and one last thing, the invasive species stuff, we're slowly but surely, we're ramping that up. We're getting a little more participation. We did have, two folks come in to get some herbicide they can use to treat buckthorn. And we're gonna start having a booth at the farmer's market, make ourselves available for folks if they have questions about invasive species. And right now, I think we're gonna do one Wednesday a month and one Saturday a month at the farmer's markets.
Great. That utility fellas that were dedicated. Okay, it is 3:20. And we will now convene a public hearing to consider a request for conditional use request to allow a cellular tower in the following described real estate in the town of, where?
Washington.
Oh, okay, I see it, yeah. And, so, Yvonne will read the public hearing notice.
Notice of public hearing, State of Wisconsin, County of Rusk, to whom it may concern. Public notice is hereby given to all persons in the town of Washington in Rusk County, Wisconsin, that a public hearing will be held on June 13th, 2023 at 3:20 p.m. in the Rusk County Government Center Boardroom, 311 Minor Avenue, East Lee, Smith, Wisconsin. Relative to a conditional use request to allow a cellular tower on the following described real estate. The northwest quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 7, Town 33 North, Range 7 West. Parcel ID is 42-136-0. Property owner is Dale and Sherry Goss, and 1799 Sawdust Road, Bruce, Wisconsin. And the petitioner is Vertical Bridge, VBTS. All persons interested are invited to attend said hearing and be heard. Written comments can be submitted. Please contact the zoning department with any questions. Signed, David Willingham, Chairman of the Rusk County Zoning Committee, dated the 18th day of May, 2023. So, you guys all got, packets in the mail, or in the email, you got the packets of the information. There is some other plans here, and I see I'm disconnected, and are you disconnected too? No? Okay. You want to put up the one map? No. And I'm just gonna read one thing, because there was some questions with the new members that we have and some of the questions the public had about conditional uses, and you had asked me to touch on that, Dave. So I printed off some of the Wisconsin statutes about how the committee has to handle conditional uses. And I will just read that. Conditional use permit. In this subsection, a conditional use means a use allowed under a conditional use permit, special exception, or other special zoning permission issued by a county, but does not include a variance. Substantial evidence means facts and information other than merely personal preferences or speculation, directly pertaining to the requirements and conditions an applicant must meet to obtain a conditional use permit, and that reasonable persons would accept in support of a conclusion. If an applicant for a conditional use permit meets or agrees to meet all of the requirements and conditions specified in the county ordinance or those imposed by the county zoning board, the county shall grant the conditional use permit. Any condition imposed must be related to the purpose of the ordinance and be based on substantial evidence. The requirements and conditions described under sub 1 must be reasonable and, to the extent practicable, measurable, and may include conditions such as the permit's duration, transfer, or renewal. The applicant must demonstrate that the application and all requirements and conditions established by the county relating to the conditional use are or shall be satisfied, both of which must be supported by substantial evidence. The county's decision to approve or deny the permit must be supported by substantial evidence. So in the packet of information you got, there were some of the maps showing the layout. We've also received that there's a determination that there's no hazard to air navigation. There's another one for historic sites. I don't know if I got it. There's a fall certification letter that's included with their application. Let's see. The FCC license and registration numbers, the FAA determination. I thought there was a historic one here too somewhere, but anyway, they've submitted quite a bit of documentation showing that they've done their research, and if anybody of you want to look at the whole packet, a lot of it is probably stuff that would be hard to understand unless you were designing the tower yourself, and then you can give your presentation.
Thank you. My name is Chad Morgan. I work for a company called Rainmaker. We've been hired on behalf of Vertical Bridge to approach property owners and for the need of improving cell coverage for Verizon Wireless. So as we've approached property owners in this area, we've talked to Dale, and he has agreed to have a tower put up on his property for the network needs. So we're looking at putting up about a 285-foot self-support tower. It is a freestanding tower with 3 legs on it. There are no guide wires associated with it. On top of that 285-foot tower, there is also a 10-foot lightning rod with an overall height of 295 feet. So with some of the documents that were mentioned, there is a fall zone letter to show that the tower collapses in a smaller area than the 295 feet. We do utilize that if we are encroaching property lines more so than the entire height of the tower, which I believe the northern property line is the closest one that we have, and we still have a decent amount of space between that property line. So fall zone should not be a concern for this one, since we're designing it to fall basically in a 150-foot radius in lieu of 195 or 295 foot. We do a lot of environmental due diligence and regulatory due diligence as part of the telecommunications requirements. So we have completed an archaeological study. We have not completed a geotechnical yet. There recently has been determined that there were wetlands in the area of the tower, so we had those mapped as of yesterday. We got those results. There is a small pocket of wetlands next to the road that our driveway was approaching, as shown on the screen here for that driveway layout. We did propose to rotate the driveway to get it out of the wetlands. So instead of coming in at about a 40-degree angle, as the screen shows, it would come in pretty much perpendicular to the road, straight into the tower. We are not moving the tower location, but we are proposing to rotate the tower lease area and the driveway, which gets us out of the delineated wetlands 100%. So there has been a small change as of lately because of the findings on the environmental review. With knowing that the tower is not located in the wetlands, we would move forward with a geotechnical analysis. The purpose of this is to determine the soil types in the area, to make sure the foundation is designed properly so there are no concerns for any kind of failure in that manner. So that is one of our next steps. We've also completed a resistivity test of the ground in the area to determine how, if lightning were to strike the tower and it were to be transferred into the ground, what type of grounding system would be needed. So we have completed additional due diligence there. We have completed private utility locates to make sure that there are no private utilities on unused property, so we did not find any in this area. So with the scope of work in terms of Vertical Bridge, they're looking at about a 100-foot by 100-foot lease area with a 30-foot wide access utility easement from the road to that lease area. Within that lease area, it'd be a 75-foot by 75-foot fenced-in compound. And then Verizon would ultimately be installing a concrete pad with outdoor equipment as the first carrier on the tower, so there would not be any kind of an outdoor shelter located there upon the first carrier, to be installed on the tower. We do also, as indicated, we've worked with the FCC, the FAA, to make sure there's no concerns, that we have received a determination of hazard from the FAA. We are currently working through the FCC, requirements, and as part of that, we have to do regulatory screening, which involves working with, SHPO, which is the State Historical Office. We would be sending out any kind of documentation to any tribes that may have been through this area over the last how many hundred years, to make sure there's no adverse effect from anybody that's been through the area. We completed the phase 1 of the property, showing that there's no environmental impacts. I believe I've kind of captured the majority of the due diligence gone into the tower, and more than happy to answer any additional questions that may arise.
I think we are in a public hearing, so it would be appropriate to ask if there's anyone here from the public who wishes to offer any testimony. And first, in favor of this proposal? Does anyone wish to offer testimony or comment in opposition to this proposed?
Yes. So,
Please,
Chad,
please
my
state your
name
name.
is Vicki Sokolowski, and I own the property around the cell tower, proposed cell tower site. So I had asked you, Chad, for the name of your DNR representative that you're working with, and you never got back to me, and I'm wondering,
Yeah,
I just wanted to discuss with them.
I apologize for not getting back to you on that. I did speak with,
Placed several calls, so, but yeah.
and so, on the behalf of my client, I have been advised not to give out that information. I apologize for not getting back to you on that. It is a matter of.
Would it be a matter of public record?
The personnel that we are working with in terms of doing the due diligence is not necessarily part of the public record requirements.
They work for the DNR, then we pay their wages, right?
That's a
As a
government
public,
entity.
it's a government entity.
It is, and I'm not saying you cannot contact them. I'm more or less advised not to give out any information regarding who we are working with directly. We work with a lot of different entities.
The report,
That is part of the, let me take notes on the report. That is part of a multiple item document, so it's not just DNR exclusively, which is where my hesitation comes in on the answer.
So what is the question?
I just want to verify that what he's saying is true. That I would like to talk to the DNR person I wanted to talk with the DNR person he was dealing with. As far as we're concerned, the area where the tower is going is wet. In the spring, River Road floods for a certain length of time each year, and that's in the area where it floods. And so,
Yep,
the groundwater in that area is fairly high, and, so.
And right across the road, there's over 100 acres of flat swamp, it's full of water most of the time.
The water that comes in
The
is.
water
from the
table is
River.
only probably like 2 or 3 feet deep there.
and it's
That's
part
why I
of,
was wondering if there's any depth dug to see where the water table was. It's low right now, but it'd be lower than what it normally is, kind of a drought.
yep. And so as part of our due diligence, we did have a wetland delineation completed by a certified delineator. We have not gotten that full report back yet, but he did identify that there are wetlands to the north of the tower, as well as a small pocket of a mapped wetland where our driveway was being proposed on the map that you can see on the screen there.
Right.
The tower itself and the compound is out of the wetland by, the nearest point on the north side is about 45 feet away from the mapped area of the wetlands. The driveway itself, we are gonna run between the two chunks of wetlands that was delineated.
How about north?
So that we would be fully out of it. In
Okay.
terms of, sorry, one more answer and then I'll don't need to cut now. In terms of the groundwater depth, that you were inquiring about, digging down, that would ultimately be determined as we complete our geotechnical analysis, which has not been completed yet. As part of our, due diligence, we don't do a geotechnical if there is wetlands in the area to confirm that we're not drilling in a wetland area. So the geotechnical, they would do 3 separate borings at each tower location. So they're about 20 feet apart, and they'll go down probably about 40 feet, 40 to 50 feet for each boring. And that is where they'll ultimately identify where the water table is. If the water table is high enough, ultimately they would just build to incorporate into it. There's really, because we're out of the wetland area, we're not imposing any kind of safety risk by putting in a concrete pier or pad at the location of the tower. So, but we do identify where that water table is as we do a geotechnical.
Will you have to put in fill to put the concrete pad down?
Sorry, say that one more
Will
time.
you have to add fill to put the concrete pad down?
Since the soil there is existing, they would ultimately auger out, or they would auger out the current soil that's there. They would put it, depending on the type of foundation, which I cannot answer at this time, there's 2 different types of foundation that could be built here. One would be as if they would do 3 separate caissons to a depth that would be determined as part of the structural analysis based on the soil findings. So let's say each of those caissons go down 30 feet. Those would have, just a concrete tube, similar if you were building a deck. They would put in any necessary rebar for the structural stability, pour that with concrete, and then any fill that came out of that hole would go back in, so they are not bringing in any raw fill from off-site. If it's the second type of foundation, that's what's called a pad and pier. So instead of doing 3 separate caissons, it would be more of a 40-foot by 40-foot concrete pad below ground, and then there would be piers attached to that pad to allow the tower to be built on top of it. Typically, we would see that in a very rocky terrain, where if we run into a scenario like this, where I would not anticipate a high bedrock, it would probably be 3 separate caissons. But again, I cannot answer that definite at this time.
So, you don't have all the permits needed yet in order to construct the tower? Even if you get the zoning here?
Right, so that is part of our responsibilities here today, is to obtain the final permits. We did get a driveway permit through the town of Washington. That driveway, we'll have to work with them, since we did kind of revise where the driveway location is going. But ultimately, we are looking to finalize the permits as part of our zoning meeting today.
Any further questions?
It just seems like things are being rushed, but,
Well, that's why I'm asking if you had any,
Yeah.
if you had any other questions.
I don't know, I don't understand why the letter that we received was dated the 18th of May, but it wasn't mailed until the 31st. And then we didn't get it until the 5th of June, so.
So I can explain that, public notice is required to go into the newspaper, and that's why you see the date on there, because I have to get it to the newspaper in time to meet their deadlines. And then it needs to be mailed out to adjacent property owners at least 10 days in advance. So it was mailed out to you almost 14 days in advance, so it's meeting all the legal notice requirements. But it's because of the deadlines for the newspaper that the date is so much earlier. And then I make sure it's actually in the paper before I start mailing it out to people, so.
Right, but we didn't receive it until the 5th.
Right, but it was mailed.
10 days.
It was mailed, so, like I said, you missed the part earlier where I've got certified mail that was mailed on the 18th of May that's not delivered yet, so I can't speak for the post office. All legal noticing was done timely.
So if you do this geo survey and it doesn't pan out, I mean, would you then relocate to a higher area on that for you, or?
I can't speak to that at this time without really knowing what the geotech would result in. It's very rare that it causes a tower to move. I've had one in my 10 years of working that the geotech has caused the tower to move, and that was because we were in an old quarry that ultimately we were on the shelf of where they stopped blasting. So it was a very, very unique situation, but it's unlikely that the geotech would have an effect of causing the tower.
And so what happens when this tower gets to the end of its life?
Yeah, great question. So there are rules within the state statute that state that if a tower is no longer used within a certain duration, that it has to be disassembled and removed and basically put back to the condition. The property has to be put back to as much of a natural condition as it was.
And so these people in Florida would do that?
Yes, yes.
And then is this going to be a 5G tower?
There will be multiple frequencies on the tower, including most likely 5G.
And so how many companies do you foresee using the tower?
At this time, there's only one. Outside of that, I'm not sure who else is looking to increase their coverage in this area. It is built to withstand a minimum of 2 additional carriers, so it could be 3. It could be more, but the original design is set up for a minimum of 3 carriers.
Are you gonna put more than 285 feet on, or are you gonna add that other 20 feet later?
Nope, the 285 feet, as far as I know, is as tall as they would go with this tower.
Well, you can't add it on without even going to committee already.
In order to increase the height, it would have to go back through, I'd imagine back through zoning, to increase the height of it, as well as, FAA notification, SEC notification. So there are additional steps that are required, including additional.
But you don't have to go to the public to get all of that 20 feet.
Our conditional use permit would only be valid for the plan as submitted at the time of it's built or proposed. So if there were a major change, a new permit would have to be requested and granted or not granted. And so a hearing similar to this would occur in that event. Is that correct?
We got an article that she's gonna read right now about that 20 feet, that they can add on without public notice.
Without community. It can go up an additional 20 feet without, once built, cell towers can go up an additional 20 feet without community consent due to the passing of section 6409A of the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012. Does that sound right?
You should be familiar with that.
That part of the section I'm unfamiliar with.
The statute?
You know, we've never had a tower come back and change their height, so I'm not sure what the legalities of that would be. We have had towers that have added additional carriers, and that is nothing that's ever come back to us because they're using their existing components, they're just adding a different carrier, so we've never had anybody increase the tower height, so if I had that proposal, I would have to do some research about how that would work, but my initial reaction would be I would bring it back, but if the cell tower company said we don't have to because of this law, then I would look that law up and follow whatever the law says.
We can give you the law number and everything.
Well, if I had it come up where somebody was looking to increase the tower, then I'd wanna see what the current law was at that time.
But it says they don't have to come back here, they can just look, once it's built, put that.
So
extra
if
20
that's a
feet.
law, then we would have to follow what that law is.
That's what it says.
So if that's,
So it could go under 20 feet.
But
So
we
it'd be
would
that's
not-
what the law says, then that's what we would have to.
The fact that the law allows it without our approval would not be a reason for us not to give the approval for the request as requested.
Right, the question is the footing or the framework on the bottom enough to support that extra 20 feet? Are they making it, if they don't plan on, are you planning on it, is the width of the base wide enough for the support of it then?
Yeah, in order for if for some reason they would expand on the tower, usually they would plan ahead for that, and this is not one of the cases that I'm aware of that they're looking to do so, but in order to add the additional height of the tower, and any carriers will say above where the current top of the tower is, they would have to run a structural analysis to show that it is a passing nature. There are a lot of all of the carriers are very diligent about making sure that there are no risks involved with what they're proposing. So if, let's say AT&T did come in and say we have to be at 305 feet, just as an anomaly, it would have to go back through some sort of permitting, whether it be admin or full zoning requirement, that would be deemed most likely as a major modification to the tower. A structural analysis would be completed by, let's say, AT&T if they were going up there, as well as it would have to go through additional FCC and FAA requirements, which would change lighting on the tower, as well as some other requirements going up over 300 feet. So there are additional requirements that would have to be met at that point. But in short, there would be a structural analysis to prove that the tower was capable of handling additional height and additional equipment at that height.
And the zoning would get that information before you did it, if you did do it?
Yes, it would have to go through don't let me speak, but at minimum, it'd have to be typically an admin review zoning. That is, if a regular carrier is being added onto it without an additional tower height add. If there is substantial modifications to the tower, typically in the ordinance, it is written that it has to go back through, it's either an admin review or full zoning, depending on the extent of the changes. But there would have to.
So that article in the paper is really not clear, because it says you don't have to have no comment or nothing from the public, you can just do it.
I would have to look into that. I've never heard of anybody trying to utilize that, part of the statute, if that is the case, to try to add on to a tower.
So if lightning hits the tower, what happens?
So there's a lightning rod at the top of the tower with what's called a home run cable that runs down to the ground. There's a full grounding system at the base of the tower, which ties in any metal objects, whether it's the fence, H-frames for the equipment, the tower itself. The lightning then is dispersed into the ground, and ultimately it'd be like, your house getting hit by lightning and then having it go down to the ground. There should be no effect to the tower itself or the equipment on the tower.
Cause that'll be the tallest thing around. And then the lighting at the base of the tower, is that on 24 hours a day, or?
The lighting at the base of the tower would just be on, so that's part of ultimately our DNR review, is because we are close to a wooded area, there is a chance, and I don't know for certain about this site, but there are requirements due to endangered species that it might be a down lighting, where it's only on for certain times of the day, but it would be either certain color or a down lighting to make sure it's not shining into the woods. So that's part of what our due diligence is looking into.
Would it be like a barn, like a light, where it's shaded, where it's just straight down in the light, not just a light sticking out?
Right, it would just be, at most a light on a post, and the ground lighting typically isn't on unless if somebody leaves it on. That's not something that we on necessarily.
Yeah, I have a tower that I drive by all the time, I've never noticed any light at the base.
Yep.
So you can see the blinking light at top, or the red light up top, but
Yeah,
I've never
usually they're
noticed
just
the
on a
base being
switch
illuminated. Yeah, I've never noticed that.
if there's maintenance going on.
The light on top changes color, but I've never noticed the base being illuminated.
And then, this is coming off a gravel road, so the construction shouldn't wreck the road.
Nope, shouldn't, it's nothing that, it's not huge equipment, it'd be, semis that would have the sections of the tower, cement trucks, and then some other probably basic equipment that you're not ready to build.
How long did it take to build the tower?
If ultimately, once the case lines are in, they have to sit a minimum of 30 days before they can start erecting the tower on top of it. So you're probably looking at about a 3-month window for main construction of the tower, maybe not including fiber or power hookup, so there might be some ancillary services, but you're looking at probably about a 3-month window.
And then what kind of security, you said there's gonna be a fence around it?
Yep, so it'll be a chain link fence with, I believe, barbed wire around the top of it, so it'd be a 6-foot fence with barbed wire around the top. And then it'd have a 12 or 14 foot gate in the front of it. Will that be locked, just for the
Does anyone have any other questions?
How far away are the nearest neighbors or where people are living from the tower?
The nearest house, I believe, is the house at the adjacent, that's about 1,200 feet, if I remember right from the
Probably
tower.
about that.
To my understanding, the other closest residence is it about half a mile to the, I believe it's the nearest, if I had to guess.
It would be your residence,
Yeah, that's us. We're the closest long-term resident. There's the other building is vacant at 1,200 feet.
Just for procedural purposes, if there aren't any further comments or questions from the public? Anyone? If not, then we will adjourn the hearing portion of our meeting, and the committee will hear the staff recommendations for the conditions, and we will proceed.
And as I think the last time we had the cell tower, the one that was on Island Lake, we're just doing the basic conditions that we've put on all the cell towers. FAA, FCC, all of those have much more regulation and expertise than county zoning. So, that's kind of why you'll see that it's kind of a basic staff recommendation, but yet it kind of covers a lot. So the staff recommendations would be: approval is based on the plans submitted at the time of application. The tower use is for personal wireless telecommunications. The tower height proposed at 285 feet. All lighting shall meet FAA regulations. Appropriate fencing shall be placed around the tower and guide wire anchors. All required state and federal permits and approvals must be obtained. And this permit shall be null and void if substantial progress has not been made on the project within 1 year of the date of approval, or if the property transfers owners before completion of the project. The findings of fact is the property is zoned agricultural. Towers are permitted in the Ag District by conditional use under 50-141(2)(g). The town board signed the conditional use permit application. The zoning committee held a public hearing on June 13th, 2023, and the surrounding land uses include agricultural, residential, and recreational. And again, this mimics the last two approvals, other than changing the height. And of course, the date of the meeting. This is the same conditions we put on our last two approvals.
So this would be the conditions, at least some of the conditions that would be placed on the permit if the permit is granted. So, is there any of those that you have any questions about or concerns?
No, sir.
So is there further discussion from the board or the committee?
I just have a question. How long does it take to activate the tower once it's up? And I mean, I'm not sure that they've activated the one on Island Lake yet. I mean, the lights are on and the equipment looks like it's up there finally. But I haven't noticed any difference in my cycle.
It's really hard to say. It's gonna mostly depend on availability of your utilities. Obviously power would be at the site that you're talking about, but fiber is a key player, and sometimes it takes longer for fiber to get to a site than power. Power is most likely somewhere around. So it really depends on how long it takes to get both utilities to the tower after it's constructed.
It must be the power of suggestion, Mark. I've noticed better cell phone service in that area, and only to find out that it wasn't hooked up yet. So I don't know why my phone was working better, but,
I know my call still drops through there, so.
maybe they don't need to.
Well, we have a booster.
Hook up to the
Yeah.
tower.
Single's always good.
Or when you're on the road.
Somebody told me it wasn't hooked up yet, and I said, really? I get a signal down here now, so. Maybe something coming.
Positive thoughts, right?
Yeah.
But that's good to know about the fiber, because I have no idea how long. I know it's close to there, but
There's fiber all the way down River Road. I was there with the crew.
Oh, so there is fiber.
There's fiber just feet away.
that would probably be part of the planning location, I would think.
As long as they know.
Is it the right fiber?
Is it the right fiber? That is the question.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll see those crews out working all the time.
They've done a lot in the last 5 years on rural fiber installations.
Anyone have any further questions?
Yeah, this is probably coming, and I could be way off base on this, but I'm just wondering, I mean, mean, the height of the tower and all that stuff, but, you know, there's a lot of trouble with, you know, high voltage power lines and other stuff and radiation coming off that. Radiation might be the wrong word, the wrong term. But I mean, if you take a cell phone and you put it near a hive of bees, you're gonna have dead bees. I'm just wondering about all the stuff coming off the tower. How is that gonna affect people and stuff around there?
Yep, so they're, you know, they do a lot of research and to make sure that it's safe. You know, the way that I've kind of been put in, you know, a mindset is unless if you're within, we'll say 20, 30 feet directly in front of the antennas, there's real no, you know, adverse effect outside of that range. It's no different than having your cell phone in your pocket or up next to your head. So really it's just the signal directly in front of the antennas that would have an adverse effect. So that, you know, a lot of times, you know, that's the gist of where the danger zone is. It's just right in front for, you know, human activity.
So they're already 200 feet away from you, right?
Exactly.
Terry's gonna crawl up there.
No, I mean, you know, you hear these things and you see that, and I mean, I'm thinking about like high voltage power lines, and it goes more than 2 miles away, and it affects, and they deny it, but farmers have had trouble with that and everything with that, and also with cell phones. I mean, like, say you don't want to leave a cell phone running and put it by your hive of bees, or you're looking for another hive of bees. So that's why I'm just asking, bringing up about radiation or the results of that, because I think there's a lot that they don't really know yet, and so that was my only question.
Anyone else have any other questions? It would be appropriate for a motion either to approve the conditional use request permit or to deny.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
We have a motion, is there a second? I have a motion and a second to approve the permit incorporating the staff recommendations as the conditions. Does anyone wish to add any additional conditions by means of amendment? Hearing none, is there any further question or comment from the committee? If not, the question is on the motion to approve the permit. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion is carried, the permit is granted.
I'll actually have to issue the permit, but if the committee's approved it at this point, and then I'll continue my review and then get it out.
Sounds good. Yeah, reach out to Brad or myself with any.
Yep. If I have anything I need, I will.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much.
Returning to regular order, I believe we're up to CSM review. And first is a 7-lot division on 2 maps in the town of Washington.
Alright, so in your little packet, you got a couple maps, and if you need a hard copy, I've got something you can look at here. It's lots 1 through 7. The guy is breaking up the land to give each of his children a chunk of land out here. So, there are, if you look at the first one, lots 1, 2, and 3, there are actually 2 of the lots that are 10 acres in size, so they really don't fall under our subdivision ordinance, because they're 10 acres, but they are still mapping them because they're doing the whole project out here. And then lot 3 is to the bottom. So they don't really front Sheep Camp Road, and they're probably gonna be getting an easement, so I talked to the surveyor yesterday, getting an easement from lot 3, because there's an existing driveway coming in to the buildings back there, and it's all family, so they're probably gonna be just having, an easement to use that driveway to access those 2 10-acre parcels. And then the other one is the 4 parcels that are all right around 9 acres in size, and they each front a road, so there's, Sheep Camp Road on one side and Windmill Road on the other side. So So they all meet length to width, they're zoned agricultural and shoreland because there is a pond on the north corner of lot 2 there, so, everything is good to go. I don't know that John has had a chance to review them yet, though. Have you-
Yes.
You've gotten them from
Yes.
Ezra? Okay, so, I would recommend approval.
Anyone have any questions? Is there a motion to approve? Motion, is there a second? Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the CSM as requested. Any further discussion? Not? All those in favor of the motion to approve the CSM signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion is carried. Do you have another?
Yes, the other one is a 2-lot map, and this is some of the property that is going to be getting donated to the county, if any of you are committees that have been working with that, in the Trails End area. So lot 2 will be, getting deeded to the owner's son, so he's gonna keep a 5-acre piece. They had to also map lot 1 because the government lot line came through there, and for some reason, they had to keep his lot at 5 acres or under. So they ended up having to map lot 1. Again, that's over 15 acres, so it doesn't really fall under our review, but it is on the map because of that government lot and having to keep lot 2 under 5 acres. It is zoned forestry and shoreland. Lot 1 does meet our 6-to-1 length to width ratio, even though it really wouldn't have to because it's not under our review, but it does meet our standards and I would recommend approval.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
You have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
A motion and a second to approve the CSM as requested. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. It's carried. Okay, further, transfer fees, revenue sharing formula.
Do you have copies of this, or?
If what you sent me, they have, but I don't know if I saw.
Yeah, I don't
this.
remember
I don't-
what all
I don't think this was, it was 2 resolutions is what I sent them.
One should have been the resolution and yep, that's the resolution. And then the other one should have been the bill. Yeah, okay.
They got those items.
So here's my formulas,
Well,
cause that didn't get sent out, right?
that did not know.
So per our resolution, we had gone and we're trying to get the state to revise the portion of the revenue sharing for the transfer fees. At this point, it's $3 per thousand and we keep 20% of that. The state has in the bill that they are going to reduce that from the $3 per thousand to $2 per thousand. And then we would, for the first 2 years, well, they're trying to change it to the end of 2023, so the remainder of this year and then all of next year, we would get 30% of the $2 per thousand. And then in 2025, it would go to the 60-40. And then finally in 2026, it would be the 50-50 at the $2 per thousand. I've talked with, have emailed Mr. Edming, and have communicated with his office, that we don't agree with this because this is not the resolution that the county put forward. And so the state just decided to throw all of the county resolutions out the window and came up with their own thing. So we told them we're not in agreement with this.
I can't imagine they've ever done that before.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I just kinda wanted you guys to be aware of what they're trying to do, and I mean, we potentially are going to lose a lot of money with them doing this, so reach out to Mr. Edming and
When you say lose, you mean potentially lose, or we would be getting less than we're getting now?
I think we're gonna be getting less than what we're getting now. If they change this from $3 per thousand to $2 per thousand, where's that other dollar? We're not getting that, you know, even if you raise the percentage, like, it doesn't compute. They're increasing the percentage, but the revenue is going down. The housing market is not gonna be COVID housing market, so it's, we all know, month to month, it's generally my recordings keep getting lower and lower and lower. At this point, I'm already 11% lower than what I was last year for transfer fees. Bringing in, statewide, it's already at 25% lower than just last year.
Is that just cause there's nothing on the market, or? That just seems odd with the prices that there are. We were talking about that earlier.
At this point, what they're looking at is, it is going to be the $1 million properties that sell, not the $20,000 properties. So there's gonna be a lot less sales happening. There's just, housing market is, we all know that, you know, you're not gonna get $300,000 for your house this year that you could've got last year.
So what's the fee now?
It is $3 per thousand now.
Okay, so they're lowering it from what it is now.
Correct, that's what they're proposing.
I thought it was at some other lower point, we were recommending 3, and they're coming in with 2.
No,
It currently is 3.
it currently is 3. What we had asked for was retain the $3 per thousand and give us 50%. And they are proposing to lower it to the $2 per thousand, and in 3 years, then we would get the 50%. Of the two. Yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, 20% of $3 or 30% of $2 is the same amount, right? So,
Well, they want 50%
okay,
of 3.
but now do the $3 per thousand. So that's where if we keep it at the $3 per thousand, obviously we're going to retain more money, but I honestly, we think it is a no-win for us. It's not what the counties had asked for.
the county retains 30% right now, right?
Correct.
20%,
20%, yes.
yes. It is 80-20 right now.
You get 60 cents for every $3.
And so if it goes to $2 and then we get 30%, we still get 60 cents. But then once it goes up, in 2025 we'll get, and then 2026 we'll get $1.50.
No, cause it's $2, not
Or
$3.
$1, yes.
It's gonna max out at time.
So it seems like we'll have no change in 2024, 2023. 2025 will actually retain more, and then 2026 will retain more. Is that correct? But you want to go, what you're saying, this resolution saying we want to go 50% in 2024.
That's a $3 per thousand.
$3.
This fee was set in 1981 is when it went to the 80-20 and the $3 per thousand, and it hasn't changed since 81. And now they're lowering that fee. Has any other fee gone down?
But
You know?
the state's the ones that's gonna actually take less money from the county by doing this, right? Because we're still gonna keep the same amount or eventually get more. But the state basically is giving up.
they say. The other thing is that this transfer fee actually only counts for 0.44% of that budget or that category that they're taking this out of. So it doesn't mean anything to the state.
Don't be much them and there's no harm to the county.
And there's really no harm to the state because they have this huge surplus that we want to take some of this money back from, and they're, yeah, but.
And realistically, clerks are doing the majority of the work. States just take.
We do all, I mean, my office, the Register of Deeds do all the work for that money. Do you have any comment on that, Connie?
We talked to Corey. I did get a hold of Corey, and he did email me and I forwarded it on to her, but, and then we talked to Tyler at Edmund's office, so they're trying to help Mary out.
Well, and essentially it's the Wisconsin County Association that's heading this bill, so. It's the county association that really has any say in it, and what happens, so.
Are you saying that the county's association supports the bill as it is now written?
They're the ones, like, I don't know if they support it, or do they, like, they're the ones submitting it? Yes. I just wanted you guys to be aware of what they're trying to do.
I think the county's association just lobbies for bills, right? They have to get a legislator to submit it. Yeah.
I believe I just saw a blurb this week that the annual business meeting of the counties association is asking for counties to submit their resolutions that they wish to have considered by the resolutions committee and the business meeting at the board. Do you know if any other counties are intending to submit a resolution?
The majority of the counties already have, there's only like a.
No, I don't mean a resolution for themselves or a recommendation to the legislature, but an actual resolution to be considered by the county's association's business meeting where they support or don't support requests for resolutions from the counties themselves, asking the county's association to say, hey, we support $3 and whatever.
That I do not know, I'm not heard of that.
I thought maybe one of your colleagues in the
as far as I know, what I know, all of my colleagues have submitted the same resolution.
But
The
this
$3.50 per thousand.
directly from the county to probably the legislature and the governor or whatever, is usually what we do.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you want possibly the county's association support, that would be the place. If they don't like them, they usually have a way of burying them.
Yeah.
They postpone them indefinitely.
Yeah. We did forward this to Corey and to Tyler, so. Yeah.
Well, you could certainly submit a resolution to our board, it could be sent again to the legislature saying.
We already did that, Dave. Yeah, that's already done.
Well, but that was done 2022.
Yeah, last year.
And they're just getting around to proposing legislation now, right? Since we made that recommendation back in March of 2022. So we could pass a resolution opposing, Assembly Bill 277. You know, I wouldn't hold my breath expecting, anything on their part to respond to us, but.
Right. That's all I have.
Okay, looks to me like we've completed our agenda. So, our next meeting is July the 11th, sometime in the same place. If that's acceptable, then if there's no objection, the meeting is adjourned at 4:15.